When it comes to concrete, we've got you covered. RowPaint.com offers custom concrete coating services for your garage, business, warehouse, and more. And we do it in one day. We are your complete concrete coatings solution.
This is Bronco Nation News Live. The best interviews, the most informed opinions, the latest breaking news, all from the top Boise State insiders. Now, here's four-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains, with another edition of Bronco Nation News Live.
Hey, what's happening, Boise State fans? Happy Friday to you. BJ Rains and Jay Tust here with you. It's a Friday edition of Bronco Nation News Live. Obviously, Jay, the sports director over at KTVB, him and Will Hall continuing to do a great job coming up with stuff even in the offseason here. So make sure you're checking them out nightly on KTVB and the various newscasts there. And we were able to pull Jay away from tweeting about the Toronto Blue Jays to get him to come on for a couple minutes this morning. How you doing, Jay?
I literally just kind of tweeted that. I said that I was taking a break from tweeting Mariner stats to chat with you here about
oh my, that is hilarious, dude. I saw that this morning. I said, that's going to be a great line I can use on the show today. And then literally 15 seconds ago, you actually just tweeted that.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how we pulled you away from. How do you get some of those stats, by the way? I mean, I know we joke about the Tust stats hashtag, and obviously you get some good ones, but I mean, some of these ones about random, backup catchers on Tuesday nights at night, on turf. I mean, how do you are you just sitting there with Camille watching TV or something and going, I wonder about this stat. I'm going to look this up. I mean, how do you
I legit wish it was more complicated, but now that we are just crossed the 5-year mark of our marriage, that's pretty much exactly how it goes. We're watching Netflix or something, and I see a stat, and I'm just kind of like, when's the last time that happened? Or how often does that happen? Or how can we get Julio Rodriguez to the freaking All-Star game because he's unbelievable? That's pretty much how it works.
I had this vision of you just like, hold on a second, hon, and then you're looking up backup catchers on the Mariners, and sure enough, the tweet comes out 10 seconds later. That's awesome.
It is no more complicated than that, DJ.
Well, we're looking forward because less than 2 weeks from now is Mountain West Media Days, and then fall camp starts, and then we get into the games, and we'll be seeing plenty of Tust stats moving forward here again for the Boise State football team as for now, they're still in the Mountain West Conference. No new news has come from that. We'll continue to monitor that. We do want to get back today to play in the by the way, I just saw an email that threw me off guard for a second. I'm very happy with this, even though he's hitting like 180. I just saw that Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera were picked for the All-Star team, kind of as like, whatever you call it, honorary picks in their last year. That's pretty cool. I'm happy that Pujols made it. I thought he might, even though it's his last year. Sorry, you were talking baseball. I was talking baseball. But back to I don't know where I was going with that. I just saw the email. I saw the email and then lost track of thought, so I apologize. It's a Friday morning, and I've been up for a while. So, but we are going to talk mostly back about the football team today and some offseason storylines. We've gotten away from that a little bit the last couple of days, getting your opinion and Johnny and Prater on conference realignment. Nothing much has really happened the last few days. Jacob does say Boise State and Memphis once had high hopes to join the Big 12. With all the realignment going on, do they still have a chance in the future, especially if they do not get admitted into the Pac-12? I will say this. I think everybody's kind of saying it's Pac-12 or bust right now or whatever, but I know all along the original goal was the Big 12, and I don't think that's totally crazy at this point either. I still think that the Big 12 in the long term, based on what we know right now, should still be considered a possibility.
Well, it's just because they actually have an avenue to get into the Big 12 right now, and I know that we've talked about this ad nauseum, but just to reiterate, they don't really have that avenue until the Pac-12 decides if they want to soften their stance on that academic qualifier that they've demanded to join their league. So right now there is still an avenue to get into the Big 12, but not so much the Pac-12 at the moment. It's funny, we said this back on Tuesday, though, BJ, following the holiday weekend. It still is kind of a sit and wait approach. And I know we've had people ask, like, why haven't we seen Boise State a little more active on social media by pushing or anything like that? I mean, it's a game of chess right now because I think if you're Boise State, you have to be a little cautious and not almost, degrade the conference that you're currently in and you have a future in, that. But you also have to internally position yourself to be attractive to bigger conferences. On top of all that, there are just bigger dominoes that have to fall before Boise State is going to get involved. It starts with Notre Dame. It could then go on to Oregon and Washington. And after stuff like that happens, then you will find out the opportunities for a school like Boise State. But there are just things that have to happen before Boise State's fate is ultimately determined. I got a question for you, BJ, before we move on. But, it was really interesting. When we talked with Commissioner Craig Thompson over the fall, he seemed pretty confident in the college football playoff expansion. And I think a lot of people were, for that matter. And then all of a sudden, that gets voted down. I really wonder, or at least postponed expanding it. I really wonder how much was being discussed about conference realignment internally back then, and the power conferences, especially the top two conferences, realizing, hey, if we break off, it's not going to be in our best interest to allow more lower tier teams into the college football playoffs. So I really bet you those discussions were taking place months ago.
Totally agree. No, I think it was really weird how they thought they came out with a plan that it looked like it was what everybody agreed to. I don't think you come out with a plan like that if it's not, usually what you've already been discussing, and then it just quietly goes away and they say they need to hold on for a little bit. And I bet behind the scenes, and it sounds like that's why the Big Ten slowed down their TV rights negotiations too in April, like just randomly at the last minute decided not to go through with that. So you wonder
there's just no way
what's been working for a while. And it is amazing that nothing leaked out until literally the morning they were voted in. When you think about how this is probably been going on behind the scenes for a while. I will say this, there's very few people that actually know what's going on. I mean, the women's soccer coach is probably not, the tennis coach may not be getting daily updates from Jeremiah Dickey on what's going on these days, but his close confidence.
Back off Beck, okay? I'm just kidding.
If anybody knows, it probably is him, But I think it's in everybody's best interest. This is a very small thing, and sometimes it's at a president's level, not even as an athletic director's level. So we'll see. I will say this: be careful what you read on Twitter. I mean, there was the last couple of days, you had some guy that covers swimming all of a sudden saying that Virginia and whatever other team were like getting out of their deals with the ACC to go to the SEC. You had some other guy that did have like 90,000 followers or something, Greg Swaim, whoever he is, saying that Arizona and Arizona State are going to the Big 12, and it's crazy season out there. So try to look for the blue check marks. Try to look for the verified folks that you trust, the Dennis Dodds, the Pete Thamels, the Jay Tust of the world. I mean, make sure you're getting
made the list.
Make sure you're getting legit info from those sources before you go crazy. Because I can't tell you how many DMs and people messaging me, oh, what this and this, and I'm like, until I see it from some Pete Thamel type, I'm not going with it yet. So it's crazy season right now.
There was even one, and I'm sorry, I know we're going down this road again, but realignment is a hot topic.
Sure.
There was even one, John Canzano, right, from Oregon.
Yeah.
Man, that guy is well connected
to begin with, I believe. Yeah,
he does a fantastic job. He's been talking with a former Fox exec that has knowledge of these TV deals and stuff like that, and it's confusing because you see articles and you see the last name Thompson and quotes from Thompson, and you're like, oh, is that Commissioner Thompson? But it's not him.
Yep.
But I still even I would love to know how stuff like that is measured. And I don't think it's like there's a full perspective that's offered too, because he said Boise State right now, their TV deal is worth about $4 million. If they went up to the Pac-12, they'd only be worth $8 million.
Which it isn't, by the way. It's 5.8.
Yep. But he says that it's only. I mean, see, that's the example I'm talking about. So,
and I wasn't saying you were wrong. I'm saying it's been thrown around by everybody else that, the Mountain West and Boise State gets $4 million. Well, every team does get $4 million, but Boise State gets another 1.8 on top of that. I know it's not a huge deal, but I mean, 5.8 is different than 4.
Well, and that's why I'm just those are kind of like the numbers that I'm almost talking about. So he says that Boise State might only be worth $8 million to the Pac-12. I really want to understand that metric better. I want to understand how he arrives at that conclusion better, because I mean, it sucks for me and my alma mater that I just continue to compare some of the negative stuff to them. But is Washington State drastically worth more to the Pac-12 than a Boise State? Like,
well, and what I don't get is they go by market size, but I mean, Boise State is when people turn on the blue turf, they'll watch that no matter what, and they're usually later in the evening, and there's people that gamble on their games and stuff. But I mean, I don't get the whole. I mean, again, market size, Boise State's bigger than Boise's bigger than Eugene. I mean, you want to go market size, let's go Boise State versus Oregon. So I mean,
it's bigger than Eugene, it's bigger than Corvallis, it's bigger than Pullman. I mean, like, you could argue now that LA is gone. There are definitely some cities, with the exception of Seattle. You probably rope in that Phoenix with Arizona State. So there are definitely some exceptions, but Oregon.
I was just saying about Oregon, like, yeah, they have a pretty small market size, but they still get good ratings because people know the Oregon Duck brand. And I think Boise State's in a similar thing where if you're going to use the market size against them, I would also look at TV ratings from when their games are on compared to other teams in the league and other teams around the country. And so I'm not saying Boise State gets the same draw of an Oregon.
No,
but I do think that just roping in Boise State with the Mountain West, roping in their $5.8 million TV deal, and roping in the fact that it's the small market or whatever, I don't think is necessarily apples to apples on this.
Oddly enough, throughout all this, and it's not the metric that will make you money in your TV contract at the moment, but I feel like if you look at social media following right now, like with the information and the data that we have available to us, for example, CBS Sports Net, they don't report. So like any number you see in terms of TV ratings out of the Mountain West is going to be some type of skewed. It is what it is. If you try to quantify it, because you just can't. And if you do, it will be skewed. So if you look at like social media following, just because that is a metric we can kind of quantify at this moment, Boise State's social media following amongst all their platforms would rank in the middle of the Pac-12. Like, I don't know how that can at least somewhat allude to the fact that people want to pay attention to them, and they do pay attention to them. So, and that's in apparently a smaller, less populated area. So I feel like that should carry some type of weight if we're trying to make sense of all this.
And even locally, Prater and everybody, and everyone's got opinions and thoughts, and that's why it's an opinion. You're not wrong. It's just, well, unless you're arguing with me. But in general, I mean, that's why it's an opinion. It's your thought, and so I'm not going to tell anyone that you can't have that. But I disagree with you on stuff. I disagree with Johnny Prater on stuff. But a lot of people, and Prater's brought it up, are mentioning you got to bring $30 million to the table, or it doesn't make sense for the Pac-12. Okay. Boise State's not bringing $30 million. Tell me what team is. Like, there's not very many teams out. The Pac-12 is not going to get a team that could keep them on the same level of what they're getting now. Now, if you want to try to get some of those Big 12 teams to come out, obviously, you might have more of a draw with some of those teams than a Boise State. But if the Pac-12 stays together, you got to add somebody. So, I mean, and again, would Boise State take, $10 million or something for the first couple of years? They're not going to take that forever, but would they take a discounted rate for the first 5 years just to get their foot in the door? Probably. I don't know, but I just to say, Boise State doesn't give you $30 million. They're a non-starter for the Pac-12. I've seen that nationally. I don't think
the Pac-12. Again, so much can happen, but personally, I don't think the Pac-12 is in a position where they can be that choosy.
Yeah.
If you're the Big Ten, you can, because you have a number of really wealthy programs committed to the future, and you're targeting probably Notre Dame for the future. Like, if you're the Big Ten, like you're sitting pretty. You can be that selective. I don't think the Pac-12 can afford both monetarily and in terms of time to be that choosy. And I don't know about this whole freaking.
Well, let's keep it going. Why not? We got the questions coming in. Jacob says, if San Diego State, UNLV go to the Pac-12, Boise State gets left behind. A lot of assuming, and not sure how realistic that scenario is. But if that were to happen, Jay, what happens to Boise State next?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I will say if the Pac-12 stays together and this alliance thing between them and the ACC is as stupid as it sounds, then maybe the Big 12 will continue to look to add. It still seems at that point in time that in the next 10 years, I don't know how long from now, one of those conferences is just going to have to dissolve if we maintain at this trajectory. I feel like it's also interesting. Like we talk about the value of teams. If Rutgers continues to just get pummeled in the Big Ten for the next 10 years, like I don't know if a conference can kick a team out, but how does that add value to a league? Where
I think they can, I've heard that before. That conferences choose or teams choose conferences. It's not the other way around, whatever, or however they phrase it. Vanderbilt. What do they bring into the SEC? And some of these teams,
academics, but outside of that, like money making sports. Nothing.
Missouri's not bringing much to the SEC either. When they came and
easy turbo, okay, like let's leave all the personal stuff out of this.
Hey, the Big 12 preseason poll came out yesterday, and for the first time in like a decade, Kansas was picked last, but they were not unanimous last. So that's progress, okay? Not a unanimous.
So who is bad enough to take a vote from them?
I have to go. I didn't see it. I just saw it on social media. And we're gonna push for 4, 5, 6 wins this year, man. We're going to get it turned around here. Perry says if Washington and Oregon leave, he thinks the Pac-12 is dissolved.
I don't think that's a bold statement. I mean, I'd probably – Perry, you're right. Like they would be in big-time trouble if that happens. Big-time trouble.
Market size argument makes me angry, too. It's not the 90s anymore. People stream nationally, and we are a national brand.
Yep.
He says, and it shows – our value, how we get more eyeballs across the country. Seems like a knee-jerk guess from Thompson. Yeah, you don't know how he came up with $8 million.
I know he's doing his. I know he's got a long history of doing this, and he probably can take a better shot in the dark than you or I could. I'm just saying. Like I don't understand how it only doubles in value, especially when you're playing bigger. Boise State now is not the team that's always holding up the credibility of a game. Like when they play UNLV, stuff like that. It's now they have somebody on par with them, if not above, that will be helping their rating. So I don't know if I get that.
Jacob says he agrees with us, but he keeps hearing San Diego State, UNLV, Fresno, and SMU. But he does admit, like all of us should, that he needs to stop reading Twitter so much.
If I'm the Pac-12, I definitely look to try to dip into Texas. Like I think you got to get a little further east. Texas.
I thought SMU made some sense maybe for the Mountain West at one point when they were looking to try to strengthen themselves. But I agree. You get into Texas, and that's the Dallas area, Fort Worth. You can get some of that TV market potentially. UNLV, again, I Prater doesn't agree with me. Johnny does. I do think UNLV is more dangerous as a team than some think. But I can't see Fresno, man. We've been to their facilities. The football stadium, I mean, I hate to say it, but the football stadium reminds me of like Memorial Stadium for the Boise Hawks. It's just an old slab of concrete. It's just not in good shape. The basketball arena is nice, but it's outdated a little bit. I don't know. I know it's California. I know maybe and what was their thing they were touting about their media market there in Fresno?
They reach all of California.
So does this show, by the way. You go on social media. Yeah, but I don't know how. Again, I do think San Diego State's probably first, and then I think Boise State should probably be second. I think UNLV could be there.
If you're the Pac-12, and like you're making decisions on this right now, can you really add UNLV's football program, who's never been ranked in the top 25, and I believe that's ever. Like I think it's ever.
They got the new stadium, though. They got the
They do. I mean, does the glitz and glamour blind you, or do you? I mean, you have to look at their product. Like, I don't know who's saving them. Maybe if they get into the Pac-12, maybe that means they can lure a higher paid, better coach. I don't know, but nothing has worked for them when it comes to football. Like, excitement is like 3 wins for them.
Carter says they own Sacramento. BJ, come on, man.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Zach Price, who will beat Kansas when Texas? Who will Kansas beat when Texas leaves?
Great point, Zach.
Yeah, that is true. Dan chiming in 500 for the Mariners. Celebrate.
Let's go, Dan.
They were what 8-2 run here or something to get back to 500.
We've
game
been
back
on
in
fire.
The playoffs now, man. Your Mariners.
I looked this up. We as of yesterday. Since June 20th, we were tied for the most wins in baseball with 12, and we won yesterday. So there's no way that we're not at least tied for the most wins in baseball since June 20th.
Any update on how Boise State players are doing in the NBA Summer League? That's just getting started for those guys, right?
I got a great update. They haven't scored any points
because they haven't played
yet.
Is today the first day one of them's going to play?
Yeah, Derek Olsen and Justinian. I mean, I will say this: we don't know like the lineups or rotations, but. Yep. Derek Olsen, the Dallas Mavericks, Justinian Jessup, and the Golden State Warriors, their teams do play today. I believe it's at 2 and 6.
They don't play together. Yeah, I looked at according to the graphic, Boise State sent out with all 5 of the schedules, or all 4 of the players' schedules in the 5 games before the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a matchup between any of the 2.
I don't believe there is either. Yeah.
A little disappointing, but we always miss it by like 1 or 2 days. The championship day game is always like right before Mountain West Media Days starts. But well, we know one person's not watching my show. Ron Counts, because he just tried to call me. So Ron should be watching this show. Come on. The heck, Ron, come on. Before we go, I actually do in the last 9 minutes here would like to actually talk some football, but it's apparent that people still care for obvious reasons about what's going on with conference realignment right now, and there's a lot to talk about. And again, we'll continue to make that a focal point until something happens. As a reminder, it was only about 1 month, exactly 1 month, when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving to when the Big 12 announced 4 new members, UCF, BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati. So it does move pretty quick. But before we get into all that, I want to tell you about a couple of our great sponsors. Compare Shop Finance for Lithia Ford of Boise. You can do it all online at lithiafordboise.com. You can go check out their showroom on Fairview as well. A ton going on over at Lithia Ford Boise. Got some great specials going on right now, and they will buy your used car. So they'll give you a great deal on the spot for your used vehicle, whether you purchased it at Lithia Ford or not. So if you're looking to sell your used vehicle, get some cash, check them out, lithiafordboise.com. Transportation compliance service as well. Check them out, transcomservice.com. If you're looking to get into the trucking industry, now is a perfect time. It's a very lucrative business, and you might think you have no idea what to do or how to start. Well, TCS can help you every step of the way to get you out there towing that first load in no time. So check them out, transcomservice.com. Idaho Central Credit Union, the official bank of Bronco Nation News and the Reigns family. You can check them out, iccu.com, for all your personal and business banking needs. Remember to check out Idaho Central Credit Union and the Blue and Orange Store as well, the blueandorange.store.com. They got free shipping on any order over $40. So you're getting ready for fall camp, gearing up for the season, need to get that new Boise State gear. They've got the latest Nike gear, all the new polos, coaches' sideline apparel. They've got it all at the Blue and Orange Store. And again, you can check them out at the Boise Town Square Mall right next to the Pro Image. They're on the second floor, or online, free orders of over $40 shipping. Free orders, the blueandorange.store.com. We appreciate our major sponsors of Bronco Nation News. And we've been continuing our series of the biggest storylines, biggest question marks. And we had them ranked 25-1, but we haven't been doing them daily, and I've been kind of shuffling them around a little bit so I can play to the strengths of my 3 co-hosts here and pick topics that I think they would be good at. So it's not a exact order, but we are getting kind of, as I've said, more important as we move along here. And now we're less than 2 weeks away from Media Days. I hope to have number 1 the day before Media Days. So we'll try to pick up the pace here with a couple of these. And Jay, I quickly want to look at the linebacker spot, and in particular, Riley Whimpey, one of the most productive players in recent memory at linebacker for Boise State. With the getting to have the extra year last year, end up playing in a lot of games. He's in the top 5, I think, now in career games played, or at least is getting up there for Boise State. Was a team leader on and off the field, just a true, a true team guy, Riley Whimpey. And the question is, how big of a loss is he going to be? How does Boise State replace Riley Whimpey next season?
It's a great question. Linebacker is just it's an intriguing spot, because while they do have a couple of guys with experience there, or at least that have been in college for a while there, a Brandon Hawkins, a Zeke Noah, he's a 6th-year linebacker coming back. DJ Schramm, who, whether it be a linebacker on special teams, he's not going to do a lot wrong. Like he's going to show up and do a lot right. But outside of those guys, you just have a lot of youngsters, whether it be guys that were here last year, or maybe a couple that are going to be infused into the program here when fall camp kicks off in August. And so it's kind of a position where maybe you could get surprised by one of these youngsters that might be a little bit ahead of a curve and ready to play early. I will say this. I would say over the next year or two, I think you really see that position kind of evolve and become a little more dynamic than it's been in the past. But with a guy like Zeke Noah at least leading the charge of that group, I have confidence that Riley's leadership skills won't be missed as much had Zeke not decided to come back for that 6th year.
And I know this, it is kind of interchangeable a little bit if they have to get that, but you have DJ Schramm, you have Brandon Hawkins there. You mentioned Noah. If there was an injury, that one of those guys, could potentially be moved around to either spot. But I think it's a big loss. I think from a leadership standpoint, as much as a production standpoint, I mean, he was always the guy that trot out there to talk to the media in tough times, and he was always the guy that we enjoyed talking to.
Yeah.
And he just knew what he was supposed to do, and he knew what other guys were supposed to do on the defense. So I just think as much from a production standpoint, I think a leadership standpoint on and off the field is going to be tough to replace.
Yeah, Riley just did everything right, man. He checked a lot of boxes off the field, which resulted in production on the field. So he certainly will be missed. That linebacker position is again, like I said, whether it be a guy like Ezekiel Noah, DJ Schramm, like you feel like they have some guys there that can definitely hold their own. But that just might be a position where, come middle of the season, knock on wood, if you sustain an injury there, you might have a freaking redshirt freshman linebacker starting, week 6 for a moment. The slope is that slippery there.
Well, folks are already calling for Deshaun Misa, the true freshman. Forget redshirt freshman.
I know the kid's talented. Like, he had great offers. This staff is super high on him. Jerron Johnson, coached him in high school and helped get him to Boise State. I know they're really high on him, but you just have to pump the brakes and not let expectations get too far out of hand for a true freshman at that position, both because of the physical demands, but also the mental demands that come with playing that spot. So I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be an awesome player, but he just might need a little time to marinate,
Well, and this kind of leads us into our second question of the day, our second topic of the day. Is this team vulnerable at some positions for key injuries, or do they have the depth to overcome a key injury this year? And I think this might have even been a question you suggested to me on the list. And so, linebacker might not be one of them. You lose Zeke Noah, and all of a sudden you got Hawkins and Schramm both starting. That could be, not ideal for you. But where else other than linebacker do you see the lack of depth being a concern? We saw it offensive line last year. A couple guys went down, and that unit was just not the same. Running back, in years past, when Helani goes down, it just hasn't been there. That's a big one for me this year. I see George Helani, but now we found out word they lost Danny Smith as well. And I'm not, saying he would have had a big role anyway, but you go into fall camp with really one guy that's had, meaningful carries for you. If George Helani misses 3 games, you're looking at Tyler Crow, who I think will have a bigger role this year. But is he ready to have 25 carries in a game? I'm not saying he's not. We just haven't seen it. And then a true freshman potentially, which, as a reminder, when George Helani was a true freshman, came in and rushed for 1,000 yards. Yeah. So I'm not saying that it can't be done by Ashton Genty, but in terms of proven depth at a position where, unfortunately, I hate to say it, the last 2 years, George Helani has not shown he can play a full season. Yeah. Running back's a big one for me. Where else, if you can touch on that, but where else are you looking at where they could be in some trouble if they have a key injury?
First off, no team is as deep as they want to be. Even Bama would argue that, right? I think you're looking at number 1 is running back. I think number 2 is probably linebacker. I think you feel good about Boise State's depth at secondary. You feel decent about their depth on the defensive line and the edge position. Losing Shane Irwin, maybe the D-line takes a little bit of a hit there. I still think that you're in a better position than you were last year. Offensive line, that actually is an area where I think there could be some decent competition this year because you have a few interchangeable guys, especially on the interior, that could provide some depth and competition. You don't want to lose a guy like John Ojukwu. That's for sure. Outside of that, maybe wide receiver, to be honest with you. They just have some unproven guys there. Steph Cobbs did great, but he was even banged up a little bit last year. So that could be a position where they need to maintain some health in order to have some success. I will say this, man. I was going through the all-conference Mountain West ballot yesterday, BJ, and I didn't fill it out. I just wanted to run through it real quick to see what we're working with.
Yep.
The defensive line in the Mountain West, that is going to be a stacked position because you have guys like Cade Hall coming back. He had a Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year in 2020. Didn't have like an awesome year last year. Came back utilizing, I believe, a COVID year this year. And I don't even think I mean, it's gonna be a struggle for him to make first team preseason All Mountain West. I mean, that just shows you how stacked that position is going to be in the league this season. So I do think there's definitely some depth on defense around the conference. There are definitely some question marks for a lot of teams on offense, though, and I feel like Boise State kind of mimics that because wide receiver is a position that doesn't have a ton of depth anywhere in the league this year around the league.
Yeah, Jacob said, when was the last time we were this unsure about how the wide receivers were going to pan out? Nervous for that, can't lie. But again, sometimes it's just guys that are waiting for their opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
We're not at practice every day. We don't see guys like Latrell Capels and Billy Bowens who may be ready to catch 30 or 40 passes this year. But certainly that lack of depth would concern you, particularly if a Steph Cobbs goes down, who he did have an ankle injury last year and was limited in some games. I'll throw quarterback in there. I mean, Hank Bachmeier,
I agree.
And you could probably say that about any team in America. If your quarterback goes down, that not many teams. But you had Jack Sears the last couple of years, and he was a guy that you felt pretty good going to. And Taylon Green played a couple games, couple snaps last year as a redshirt freshman this year. You bring in, Sam Vidlak, the Oregon State transfer, who again is a young guy you don't know a lot about. I think this time next year you'd feel much better about either Vidlak or Green taking the reins. But I mean, if Hank Bachmeier goes down for 4 weeks with a knee injury or something, I think there's a lot of concern at quarterback.
I would agree with that. And I mean, I know that the future is bright with Taylon, but they're just, for whatever reason, there just seems to be a little something there that's hanging that up or holding up, like, him really competing for that starting job. And usually, like, it's just cliche, like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, oh, every job's open during fall camp and nobody's solidified, but you really haven't heard that at the quarterback spot. Like, it really feels like it's Hank Bachmeier's job to lose. So for whatever reason, despite the fact he's like the fastest guy on the team, is what his
second fastest.
Second set to bolt, yeah. Yep. A lot of his metrics, whether it be vert or broad jump, like they're all off the charts, especially for a quarterback. But there's just a little something there that's holding him back, despite the fact, man, a lot of people have a ton of confidence in his ability.
And as I've said before, I just have a feeling he's going to be a prominent player in this. I think you see him every game in some Wildcat Montel Cozart type package. Maybe you see him out wide. We get both quarterbacks on the field at the same time. I think they're going to tinker with that and have some fun with that. And there's no need not to put him on the field if he gives you, particularly if he's the second fastest player on the team. Give him a carry or two. I mean, see what happens out of the backfield. Make them have to think about a second quarterback being out there. They got kind of creative with Montel Cozart later in the season with him and Rippon. And I know it's a different staff, but I think that could be something they could look to do.
Yeah, I don't know, like, the amount of, like, I think that Montel that year is, played more than you'll see a guy like Taylon intentionally play.
The game,
not involving an injury even for that matter too, because Montel would rotate in still after that. But I think it would be good to get him into the game, play to his strengths, not ask him to do too much, play to his strengths, and hopefully that will start to slow the game down for him for when his time comes, which could be this year, but definitely could be next year.
Yep, no doubt about it. But, to wrap it up, I feel good about safety. You still have Tubner, and you could move Oladipo back there. You feel good. You feel good at corner as well. You have four guys that can start there. And I know it's kind of like the old adage, like you never have enough pitching. I mean, I guess you never have, like you said, enough depth. But you feel good about those positions. Worry a little about linebacker. Worry a little bit. You can never have as much depth as you want on the offensive line. But there's going to be guys that started games last year not starting this year for Boise State's offensive line. So you got to feel a little better about that. Tight end, we'll see. I mean, that hasn't been a position that's been used a ton anyway. So I don't know, you'd like to keep Riley Smith healthy, but if he were to go down, I don't know if the offense all of a sudden can't move the ball, and that's nothing against Riley Smith. I don't know if one tight end injury or two tight end injuries all of a sudden changes your offense like losing a quarterback.
One other quick note: have you looked at your preseason All Mountain West ballot yet?
I got it yesterday, and I haven't had time to look at it.
I know, and it's kind of hard because they actually make you fill out certain things as you go through. So I just kind of fibbed as I got through it, and I'll go back and make it all certain. There is one tight end option. That is it.
There's crazy.
There's like one tight end.
Who is it?
It's a freshman at Colorado State.
Wow.
One.
That's pretty crazy.
That's it. Like, the only guy that's been
Well, we
nominated.
know who we can make our first bold prediction. We can make our first bold prediction on who's going to be the preseason tight end
seriously
player of the year.
And you have to vote for it. You have to fulfill the requirements. So
that'll be something we'll do maybe next week or as we get closer to media days, kind of go through our ballots and look at all that. But Jay, appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much, and have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too, man. There he is, Jay Tust, sports director over at KTVB. Appreciate everybody for checking us out today. Bronco Nation News live at bronconationnews.com. We'll be back with breaking news if stuff breaks throughout the weekend. Otherwise, we'll see you Monday morning. John Mallory will join me at 9 a.m. And we're getting ready to gear up here, only a week and a half away from media days and fall camp, and we'll have the daily stories, daily coverage from fall camp on the website, daily highlights and stuff here. We're gonna cover Boise State football like nobody in this town come August 3rd when practice starts. So hope you're ready. Hope you subscribe. Appreciate all of you that already are subscribers, and thanks so much. And we'll talk to you later. Bronco Nation News, bronconationnews.com.